We are now officially live.
Soti everyone, and welcome to our weekly study group. And thank you for joining us again, everyone on YouTube and on Discord. And today we will continue with our study of the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta with Venerable Dhamma, who is joining us from the Meditation Center in Sri Lanka, and with the online Sri Mangala community. After 1 hour of the study, we will continue with 1 hour of discussion and Q&A. So some part of that will be discussion, and then we will move on to the Q&A, depending on what there is to talk about. And before we start, as usual, we will start by taking together the 5 precepts and taking refuge in the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. Because by taking refuge, every week we profess or we strengthen our acceptance of them for guiding our lives. And it's still the same formula as it was during the Buddha's time. And by reciting it, one declares themselves a Buddhist. And observance of the 5 precepts is the minimum standard necessary to form the basis of a decent life and of further progress towards Nibbana. We also do this to prepare our minds for studying the Dhamma in general before going into this study. Is there in the Discord reading group someone who would like to lead the recitation today?
I would like to.
Okay, thank you, Martin. You may go ahead. Yes, I think so too.
There was sound in the beginning.
Seems to be working now.
Okay.
Yeah, it was probably just for the new slides or for the new scene. I will end my
That
screen
actually
sharing
makes a lot
here.
of sense, Laura. Thank you.
So we will now continue with the study of the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta commentary by the late Venerable Mahasi Sayadaw. And if you are part of the reading group, please send a request to speak on stage if you have done at least the at-home course. We read about 2 paragraphs each. When reading, please take your time and read slowly and carefully. And between each paragraph, also please leave a short pause so there's time to ask either a question or if Venerable Yuttadhamma wants to explain something. And also, feel free to ask questions anytime. Don't hesitate. We don't want to rush through the text. We want to study it. We want to learn from it. And we continue with page 153 on the PDF, 143 on the physical page, with the terrible life as a demon and a cow. The reading list is online. Thank you, Martin. And Edith, you would be the first person to read today.
Okay. Terrible life as a demon and a cow. In about 1956, in the Payagi monastery of Mandalay, there resided a student bhikkhu called U.R.Sena. He was of good build, clear complexion, and full of faith in the Dharma. He was a good student too, devoting himself wholeheartedly to the study of the text. One day, while washing his alms bowl, he addressed his colleagues. I urge you to take care, friend, to be of good behavior while you are living on the alms food of donors. I am living a heedful life, having had personal experiences of 3 existences.
So remember that we are still in the section on the dukkha samudaya satcha, the truth of the origin of suffering, which is tanha. Tanha meaning thirst or craving. Anything that we attach to can cause more suffering. And one of the ways it does this is bono bhavika, by causing us to be reborn again. So over time, people can accomplish a sense of stability in this life. So you can begin to live a life for a time that is stable and overall pleasant, controllable. It's all the hallmarks of wrong view associated with it. The opposite of what the Buddha said life is actually like. And so it's easy to forget that life is uncertain, and that inevitably life is full of opportunities for great suffering. That even in this life, we all have, almost all of us have gone through some incredibly trying times when we were young, when we were growing, even in our adult lives. And further, with the decline of our health, we're going to go through some further challenging times. But even beyond that, if we are not free from craving, and depending on what we cling to, what we crave for, we most likely will have to come back and do this all again. And that includes all the bad stuff. And it's a bit of a gamble as well, because it could be far worse. It will sometimes be far better, but it will also sometimes be far worse. And in the end, it's just a meaningless cycle. So even the good doesn't provide any positive benefits. This sends us back into the ocean of samsara once it's done with us. All of the stability that we have, the illusion of stability, the illusion of pleasure, the illusion of control, none of that has any value. We don't come out of it any better or any happier, any more stable. In fact, it makes us mentally unstable, makes us more unsatisfied and susceptible to disappointment, and more triggered when things are not under our control. Makes it harder to deal with the rest. So the more we cling to the stability of this life, the harder we're going to have it when we're forced to leave this life behind.
I'll continue with the story. One of his colleagues, becoming curious, asked him about his previous lives, and he replied, "I passed away from human life to become a female demon. I suffered terribly in that life, having scarcely anything to eat, no decent place to live, roaming here and there to find a resting place. From a female demon, I became a draught ox. I was herded in the same pen with a teammate whose nostrils were running with putrid nasal fluid, its nasal smell becoming unbearable. I goaded it to keep it away from me. The owner beat me, thinking I was bullying the other ox. When I passed away from that existence, I regained human life, and becoming agitated with religious emotion, and have now taken up the life of a bhikkhu."
So even monks can be certainly subject to negligence. Being a monk can be incredibly stable and comfortable and controllable. Life can become quite, in a sense, easy. Of course, there's a great difficulty being a monk. It's much easier to just disrobe and go back to all the things that you'd rather be doing. But it's certainly possible to live as a monk in a bad way. And there's no reassurance that just because you're a monk, you're going to be reborn in a good way in your future life. Very much tied to the things that we do. One thing that I will say, though, as well, is that I don't think it's the proper result of all this to become scared of samsara. It can be of limited value on a superficial level to get scared of the terrible thought of being born as a demon that never gets anything to eat, a yakini, I believe, is what he's referring to. and or an ox that has to deal with other oxen and owners that beat it and that sort of thing. I mean, that's frightening. And so this kind of teaching can be superficially useful, but it shouldn't be mistaken for a deep teaching. It's not really a deep teaching to say this is frightening, this is scary. It's a goad of sorts that when you hear this, you think, oh, well, then there's something wrong with my philosophy of just eat, drink, and be merry, or tomorrow you may die. That philosophy doesn't work because that doesn't lead you to eating and drinking and being merry in the next life. So it challenges worldly philosophy, but it doesn't provide the answer. Because the answer is not to get frightened or horrified. The answer is to get bored, to get tired, to become tired of samsara, tired of suffering. Not averse to it, not running away from it, not scared of being born as a cow or a demon, not being scared of that, not being scared of anything, just getting tired of both the pain and the pleasure. And that's more difficult, and that's much deeper, and that's the true Buddha's teaching. Buddha often talked about nibbindati dukkhe, atta nibbindati dukkhe, and one becomes disenchanted or tired, bored of suffering. And by suffering here, he means everything that is pleasant or unpleasant. To see it all as just meaningless. So again, it's not that the pleasure is bad or that you're evil to experience pleasure, or pleasure is something to be shied away from, or you should live an austere life that has no pleasure. It's that pleasure is pointless. It's meaningless. It's worthless. But you have to see it the same as the pain. You have to see the pain same as the pleasure. Don't be afraid of one or attracted to the other. And face them and see them and learn and become familiar with their nature. That's it. So the best lesson from these teachings of rebirth is just to have a broader perspective that it's all just meaningless. It's not that samsara is all bad. It can be very good. You're born in heaven. That's great, right? It's just that it's bad and then good and then bad and then good. What end? To what point? Someone who pays attention. It's not a philosophical thing. It's not something that you should think about intellectually now that I've talked about it. Someone who pays attention will get tired of it. That's the point. Not thinking about it or reading about it or studying Mahasi Sayadaw or listening to these stories. Paying attention will make you tired of it all. That's the Buddha's way.
Rebirth is inevitable. It also shows what a horrible life is, that of a demon, and how, handicapped by the inability to communicate, an ox is liable to be misunderstood and could be maltreated in consequence. These accounts should serve to cause terror and incite religious emotions in us.
Being born a human is not the default. It's not the most common rebirth. Being a human is considered to be a rare rebirth. So it's not surprising that someone from a human should be born as a demon or a cow. Animal rebirths are much more common, and for an animal to be reborn a human is very difficult. So rather than thinking, on the balance, being a human is pretty good, it's not. I mean, there's a lot of horror and pain and suffering being a human, but Many people live pleasant human lives and think, oh, this isn't so bad. You haven't seen the half of it. This is only a very small part of what's in store for us in samsara. No wonder that we can't remember our past lives for the most part. The horror of it all. It's just, our mind just is shocked. It's shocked out of us.
Could you move? Oh, yes, sorry. Yeah, thank you. Regaining human life after being a cow and a dog. About 1948, the Sayadaw of a village monastery in Monywa district was shot dead by a rebel leader who accused the Sayadaw of ill-treating his underlining. The Sayadaw is now in human existence, a bhikkhu again. We hear that he had even passed some of the scriptural examinations. This bhikkhu recounted, "I became a cow after being shot, then a dog, and now I am a human being again. To go down from the level of a bhikkhu in human life to that of a cow and then a dog seems very degrading. However, if craving is not eradicated, it is possible to descend the ladder of existence lower still. There is the instance of Bhikkhu Tissa, who became a louse in the time of the Buddha, thus realizing that anyone who has not eradicated craving and with personality view and doubt also stay intact, is liable to take lower rebirths. So it is essential to strive for the complete eradication of craving, or at the very least, to work for the elimination of personality view and doubt.
Even rebirth as a crowing lizard is possible. In about 1961, there appeared in Phaong Vey village near Daegu a strange young child who said that he was previously the presiding monk of the Wa Wang village about 2 miles away. The child was intelligent with a retentive memory. When taken to the monastery, which he said he resided in, he appeared to know all the articles in the building and was able to identify each object, recalling the name of its donor. What he said was found to be true. He said he had become a crowing lizard in the monastery when he died as the presiding monk. As the crowing lizard, he met his death when he leapt across from the monastery to a palm tree nearby. He missed the tree and fell to the ground, breaking his thigh. The injury caused his death. When he died, he rode on the cart of a farmer from Phaong village who had his field near the monastery, and he stayed in the house of the farmer. What he said about riding on the cart was the appearance of a sign of destiny as death approached.
The sign of destiny is a translation of gati nimitta. It sounds very lofty, but it's just a very standard Buddhist term. Remember, there are the three kamma, kamma nimitta, and gati nimitta. Gati nimitta means the vision of the example of this. Kamma is when you have a vision of something you've done. Kamma nimitta is a vision of a symbol symbolizing something that you've done. These are the three things that the mind can cling on to and cause rebirth. I want to go back to the last paragraph and just mention one more thing. One way that the fear narrative works really well is because if you accept that it is fearsome, so for someone coming new to Buddhism and hearing about, for all of us really who are mostly didn't grow up Buddhist, so this is something new to think about, that we could be reborn as a cow or a demon or a lizard, and that samsara has a lot of danger in store for us, and that we should be afraid of it. You can continue from there by talking about a solution, and the solution being the attainment of sotapanna. So he mentions, he says, anyone who has not eradicated craving is liable to take lower births. So essential to strive for the complete eradication of craving. So that's the deepest, most core teaching, that the Buddha taught the eradication of craving, but it's hard to pass that on to people. And again, that requires a deeper understanding of not being afraid, because fear is also a kind of or it's based on craving, it's still based on some kind of attachment. But, and so, again, this, to get there, to become an arahant, requires getting tired, getting bored, completely tired of everything. But there's an alternative, or there's a lesser solution that the Buddha would often talk about, and that's the attainment of sotapanna. So here he says, or the very least, to work for the elimination of personality view. So you don't have to teach Buddhism or guide people interested in meditation that you have to give up all craving. It really isn't a great teaching, because it's not something even fathomable to people. And it really isn't the correct teaching. Buddha said, for someone who is diligent or vigilant, but appamada, he said that abhayapano, they never get angry. Stadasato, they're always mindful. Ajatang susamahito, they calm their mind, they create their focus and stability in their mind. And number 4 is abhijja vinaye sikang. Now, my Ajahn Tong emphasized this 4th part. Abhijja vinaye sikang means training to go out from craving. Abhijja, which means desire or craving, it's the opposite of aversion or anger. And he says it's interesting that with anger, the Buddha said, you just don't get angry. So that's challenging and difficult, but for meditators, it's not so difficult. It's a challenge, and it's something that we work on all the time, but it's not something that is practically challenging. But craving, the Buddha said that we work to overcome craving, because even a sotapanna has attachment, but it's not a problem, you see, because the sotapanna has done something more important, more basic, and more groundbreaking, and that is they've overcome personality view, which means they don't cling to craving, aversion, and delusion as being right. They don't say, I deserve this, or it's right to like things, or it's right to dislike things, and getting angry is righteous, and so on. They don't have any sense of me or mine, he says they don't have any belief that this is me and this is mine. Their view has been eradicated. And what that means basically is that they have come to see the problem with defilements. They haven't given up defilements. They still have greed to some extent, anger to some extent, delusion to some extent. But they don't have the wrong view that there's something right about them. That's the most important step, and that's all that's really necessary. Once a person becomes a sotapanna, the rest is just practice, takes time and takes application of mind. So depending on the individual, some people go on from a sotapanna to become an arahant quickly. Others can take up to 7 lifetimes. But a sotapanna is safe. Sotapanna will never be reborn as an animal again. So these monks were not sotapanna. These monks who were reborn as animals were not sotapannas. If they were, they wouldn't have been reborn as an animal. Can't be reborn as an animal, a demon, hell. All of those are closed. Close the door to loss. This is a common phrase that my teacher used to say a lot, but it's just a common phrase in Buddhist society. Closing the door to abhaya. Abhaya means states of loss. Itpatu abhay, they say in Thai. Close the door to it. Never be open again. So why this is important to talk about is because it can be discouraging to think that you somehow have to decide that you want to give up all craving. Most people don't want to. Most Buddhists don't want to. And so to take that as your goal seems like a monumental task and a dubious task even for someone who's new to the practice. But to appreciate that greed is wrong, anger is wrong, delusion is wrong, and to appreciate that we have these defilements in us that are going to cause us suffering. And to appreciate the benefit of freeing ourselves from anger and addiction and arrogance and conceit. This is all stuff that can be taught and can be appreciated. And most importantly, to teach that we can free ourselves from wrong view, and that no matter what the truth is, regardless of what the Buddha said or what is written in books, we can see the truth, whatever it might be, whether it's what the Buddha taught or something else, that we can see it for ourselves. That's a teachable practice, and that's something that's agreeable and acceptable and easy to appreciate for newcomers. So when we teach mindfulness, we teach that when you practice mindfulness, you're practicing to see clearly. We don't talk about giving up craving. I mean, we talk about it, but we don't emphasize that as being the goal. The goal is not any of that. The goal is seeing clearly. Get there first. Once you see clearly, then we can talk. Then we can start to point out some of the wrong ideas that we had about craving, about aversion. But just naturally, once you see clearly, you start to go deeper and deeper and refine the mind on a more subtle and more subtle level, until you eventually just naturally free yourself from all greed, all anger, and all delusion. But a person who practices satipatthana absolutely can become a sotapanna. It usually takes intensive practice and dedication. It takes a presence of mind and a stability of mind to be able to do intensive practice in mindfulness. It takes having done many good deeds in past lives and many good deeds in this life to facilitate our practice. But it is certainly possible. If you've come this far and you're a human being with enough goodness in your mind to be able to appreciate the Dhamma and to listen to the Dhamma without getting upset or running away or getting bored or switching to watch where are you to watch to I don't know, whatever people do on the internet nowadays besides the Dhamma. If you can stay here and listen to this and take part in this group, you're already doing well. So if you continue in this way and dedicate yourself, find a way to do intensive practice. This is why wherever we go, we set up a meditation center, because this is what we teach, this is what we practice, this is what we preach. This is the way. And so it should be inspiring shouldn't be something that you wonder, is this valuable? You should think, I could become a sotapanna. I could free myself from all these terrible, fearsome things that we're talking about that are very real and very much a potential destination if I'm not mindful, if I'm not pure of mind. So certainly everyone should dedicate themselves to it. I mean, it's a good sort of approach to the Buddha's teaching, to talk about how fearsome things are and then to provide a very real solution to the fear of being reborn in a lower destination, like as an animal or in hell or something.
This story should also cause the realization that with craving still lingering, fresh existence could arise. And taking fright at this realization, one should develop the noble path to rid oneself of craving. The reason why I bring up these stories of modern times is because there are some people who maintain that there is no such thing as an afterlife. Some are undecided and perplexed, not being able to conclude whether there is or not. In spite of clear accounts of renewed existences in the scriptural literature, many are skeptical of what was written about ancient times. Thus, in order to arouse faith in karma and its effects, and belief in the afterlife, and to remain steadfast with such conviction, I have recounted these stories. There are many similar stories that I could tell, but enough has been said to accomplish my aim.
It is a big deal. A lot of this hinges on a acceptance of the truth of rebirth. So one thing I'm talking a lot, I know, but one thing I could say about rebirth that I think interesting and useful, especially for those who are on the fence, like the way Mahasi Sayadaw. Even in Myanmar, there were many people apparently who were undecided and perplexed. Is that if you look at reality as we experience it, not as it's written in textbooks or as we think about it, because all of that is dubious at best. I mean, it's dubious because it comes from conjecture and it's something that it's our image of life and what reality is something that is built on so many layers. There's religion, there's culture, there's delusion, and there's partiality, our own biases. There's so many things that build up our vision of what reality is. So if we ignore all that, and you have to even ignore science. I'm not saying science is wrong, but it's couched in terms that are not as useful to us as simply looking at our experience. Experience is objective. It's objective in the sense that seeing is seeing, hearing is hearing, smelling is smelling, tasting is tasting, feeling is feeling, thinking is thinking. This is why the Buddha talks so much about the six senses. It's the basis of what's real. It's objective. It's undeniable. Nobody can say, look, when you think you're seeing, you're not actually seeing. They can say you're not seeing what you think you're seeing. Obviously, we don't know whether anything that we're seeing is real. It could all be an illusion. You could imagine a case where that is true, that we're not actually here sitting in this room looking at a computer screen or a telephone or whatever, that we're actually imagining all this or it's coming from somewhere else. But seeing is seeing. It's an experience. Or if you want to put it simpler, experience is experience. Buddhism always talks about experience. The Buddha's teaching is all about experience and the way experience works. If you look a little bit closer, you see that not only is there's seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, feeling, thinking, there's also liking and disliking. There's identifying, there's conceiving, there's our reactions to our experience. This is real. This is reality. This is the way it is. If you pay close attention, it's not even that hard. You don't have to spend a lot of time, but if you pay a little bit of attention to reality, you'll see that there is cause and effect, and this is happening moment after moment. So everything that we do, when we react with greed, there's a result. When we act with anger, there's a result. Things change in a bad way. On the other hand, if we react with kindness, if we react with clarity, equanimity, wisdom, things change in a good way. Our life changes based on the ethical qualities of our actions. So it makes the most sense, if this is all we consider, that this should continue on forever, indefinitely, with no end. That for this to end, there would have to be some other variable injected into the mix that prevented this cause and effect chain of what we call karma in Buddhism, right? Not seeing that thing that would stop all of this, because you'll never see such a thing. You'll never see it, it suddenly stopped. Where greed didn't lead to problems and anger didn't lead to problems, and the opposite, kindness and compassion didn't lead to good things. Because we don't see that, we should really and truly believe that it just continues on like this. And so what that means is that rebirth, it's not even really rebirth, but the continuation after death isn't a leap at all. It isn't based on belief or faith. It's just an extrapolation. It's the most obvious, putting aside all of the things we know that we die, right? Because death is, of course, the difficulty, the monkey wrench in this theory. But at the simplest level, it makes sense. It makes sense that if you're a good person, you're reborn in a good place. If you're a bad person, you're born in a bad place. I mean, grossly oversimplifying it. But there should be no immediate doubt or skepticism against rebirth, saying that that's just a belief. You've just read that in a book or something. Not at all. A person who practices mindfulness, even for a few days, becomes what is called a chula sotapanna. This is called, chula means small. Sotapanna, again, entered into the stream. Why? Because they have seen cause and effect. They've understood, even just in a few days of practice, they've understood that bad things lead to bad results, good things lead to good results. So they become what is called a chula sotapanna. This is a few days of intensive practice. Usually anyone with moderate capacity to practice attains what is called chula sotapanna. What that means is that in the next life, they won't be reborn in any of the lower realms. When they die from here, their mind is so clear, their clarity is so powerful, that when they die, they're sure to be reborn in a good place in this life. In future lives, there's no safety, no security. They can still fall away from it. But simply by practicing mindfulness, you see enough to appreciate that good leads to good, bad leads to bad. This is not hard to see from a perspective of a meditation practitioner, mindfulness practitioner. And so the appreciation of rebirth should be the default. Now you can appreciate that because we don't know what it's like to die, it could be the thing that stops all of this from happening, certainly. We don't have any proof that it's not. Well, we have obviously stories like this and some kinds of evidence, but it's not really proof by any means. The default is, and the thing that makes the most sense, because it's how the world works, it's how reality works, is that you're going to have to face the consequences of your actions. The actions, well, for the most part, your actions will bring about consequences. Your ethical actions will bring about good or bad consequences. And so rebirth is not something that should be hard to swallow or something that you need proof for. You need proof, practice mindfulness. And you'll appreciate that that's how the world works. And so it makes the most sense. It's certainly obvious. Oh yeah, of course, when I die, it's another moment, and yeah, it'll have consequences. If I die with a good mind, good consequences. If I die with a bad mind, of course, I've seen it already, bad consequences. It's not categorically different.
Three kinds of craving. As stated above, because craving can cause rebirth, the Blessed One taught, this craving that gives rise to fresh rebirth and is bound up with delight and passion, seeking delight now here, now there. He further elucidated this craving. What is this craving? Firstly, there is craving for sensual pleasures. Secondly, there is craving for existence or attachment to eternalism. Thirdly, there is craving for non-existence or clinging to the view that there is no afterlife. These three types of craving are the truth of the origin of suffering.
We're in the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta on the second noble truth, and this is the text. He's reciting the text that there are three kinds of tanha. There's kama tanha, sensual craving, bhava tanha, craving for existence, and vibhava tanha, craving for non-existence.
Bhante, what is the attachment to eternalism? What does it really mean? Thank you.
So bhava tanha could be any kind of desire for something to be. You know, you want to be a lawyer or you want to be a doctor. It's the idea for the craving for some kind of existence. But the commentaries call it attachment to eternalism. He's going by the very orthodox interpretation. But like my teacher said, for vibhava tanha, if you want something to not be, suppose you have a sickness and you wish that you weren't sick. He said that's vibhava tanha. Because it's not really sensual craving, right? But you wish for something, you yearn for something to be gone. It's a very simple and practical explanation. But on the ultimate level, eternalism is the idea that that we exist forever, that the soul exists after life. So there's a sense that we are our soul is pure, and it doesn't really matter what you do because it's all just like water off a duck's back. The soul is never harmed. Or I don't know if that's entirely, it depends who you ask. You know, they have different views of self, but the idea that the soul persists after death, which is not Buddhism, not the teaching of Buddhism. So this leads to the desire to become this, to be this, and to be that. When you think it's I that am becoming something, that's why it's connected to eternalism. Desire for something to become stems from the idea that I am becoming it. It is me, it is my soul, this eternal soul that goes from life to life. That's eternalism. The opposite, nihilism or ucheda ditti, the opposite is that when we die, there's nothing. And so that's connected to the desire for not being, when you want things not to be. It can be related to this idea that it's okay to just do what you want, to eat, drink, and be merry, because when you die, there's nothing. Some people will kill themselves to get to that state of nothingness. So it's connected. People who kill themselves have vibhava-tanha, desire for non-becoming. And it's related to this view that there is nothing after death, right? So you can extrapolate that. If you think you can get rid of something, on a practical level, it's the same, because suppose you have a disease and you wish that it was gone, and you desire for it to be gone. You have this idea that that's meaningful, right? Not having this disease is a meaningful goal. I've cured the disease. Something is I've eradicated something, but you haven't. Disease just comes. There's just another disease waiting around the corner, right? There's old age, and there's sickness, and there's death. So it's connected to the belief or the view of nihilism or annihilationism.
So, Bandi, may I ask one more question, please, connected to this vibhava-tanha? So, if I experience or feel, oh, this life is tiring and it keeps going on and on, just maintaining life, everyday activities. So, if I don't manage to note that moment, is there a danger to become, vibhava-tanha? To lead to vibhava-tanha? Thank you.
Yeah, or more simply, just aversion, resentment. It's common for our superficial level of understanding of the negatives of samsara and the negatives of clinging can lead to aversion. So new practitioners in meditation often get annoyed by their family members when they go home. You do a meditation course, go home and are angry at your family and your friends for being so superficial and so attached to things. You can be very much annoyed by these things. But so yeah, you have to appreciate the difference between getting tired and getting upset or getting annoyed. If you dislike samsara, you've got disliking. It's still disliking. If you're tired of samsara, it just means that you're no longer reacting. What getting tired? It's a bit vague to say tired, because we use this word tired when we're actually mean we don't like something. I'm so tired of you, etc., etc. But we're not tired. We're angry. So it's misleading. If I say tired, you get the wrong impression. But literally tired just means you no longer react. So if someone hurts you, getting upset about that is not tired of it. But if someone hurts you and you just don't react, that's what it means to be tired. You stop reacting. You look at it and you think, I can't fix this. And you stop trying.
Bhante, could you maybe say getting tired of anything that's not related to Dhamma or practicing? Or is that still too narrow?
Practice isn't a thing that exists, but what you get tired of is actual experiences. What you really get tired of is the moments of experience in mindfulness meditation. You get tired of rupa, you get tired of vedana, you get tired of sanya, you get tired of sankhara, you get tired of vijnana. Rupasmimpi nibbindati vedanasu nibbindati sanyayapi nibbindati sankharesu nibbindati vijnanasmimpi nibbindati nibbindang virajati being tired or disenchanted. Virajati, one is like virajati means free from craving or attachment. Virago vimuchati. Vimuchati. I may be butchering this, but this is the Anattalakkana Sutta, I think. Virago, yeah, the Anattalakkana Sutta. Virago vimuchati. Vimuttasming vimuttamiti. Being free from craving or free from desire or attachment, one is freed or released. Being freed, one says, one knows I am freed. Vimuttasming vimuttamiti jnanang hoti. There is the knowledge I am free. Atidani punabhavoti. There is no further becoming here. We should probably do the Anattalakkana Sutta after this one. The Anattalakkana Sutta is the second discourse. So we're doing the first discourse now. But Mahasi Sayadaw has a book on the second discourse. It's a shame he didn't write one on the Adita Pariyaya Sutta. Be a good third one.
So we can stop then our reading for today. We'll continue next time with sensual craving. Thank you for reading, everyone. Thank you, Venerable Dhamma, for giving so many good explanations today. So if there are any things that are on your mind right now that you would like to discuss, then go ahead and turn on your microphone. I mean, related to the study, of course. You can also ask any meditation-related questions, and we will slowly move to the Q&A, the YouTube and also Discord Q&A. So you may type in any questions that are sincere, which are maybe related to Buddhism, but generally are practice related or have some kind of practical value that are not too theoretical. And even during the formal Q&A, you may just turn on your microphone if you have something to add, to comment on, or a follow-up question.
I just wanted to comment that what Bante said towards the end about not getting fearful of karma and rebirth, that was very helpful to me. Having grown or having been born into a Catholic family, there was a lot of fear mongering my entire life growing up, and the concept of sin and heaven and hell. And so that tends to still be prevalent for me. This kind of fear still comes up. So the knowledge that Bante imparted to us about looking at it through a different lens was very beneficial for me.
Yes, and important, because it can. Mahasi Sayadaw is doing his thing, and it's a valuable teaching, but it is superficial. And on a deeper level, you have to acknowledge that, hey, yeah, it was bad to be reborn as a demon and an ox, but he came back and was a monk again. And all that means is that it's not doom in any sense. We're never doomed. There's always opportunity. The more scary thing than being born as an ox or a demon or a lizard is not having an opportunity to learn the Dhamma, because it is quite rare to have a Buddha around. And this is something you'll hear a lot that teachers will often emphasize, is that we have Ajahn Tong, this is the first thing he would say to anyone who came to practice. This is a rare opportunity. We have a rare opportunity. So you've heard me say, I'm just relating to you the sorts of things that he said. We have this rare opportunity to be born a human in the time of the Buddha. So it's true that if we're born a dog or a pig or a cow or a demon or even born in hell, not the end. It's not doom. And it's not meaningful. That's where the tired come from. You just say, it doesn't mean anything. Stop getting upset or afraid of these things. They don't have any meaning. But the meaning that they do have in a more practical sense is that if you're born in hell, you've probably lost any opportunity to ever meet with this Buddha Sasana again. Right? So, and there's no guarantee that in the future you'll ever meet with Buddhism again, another Buddha Sasana. So one thing that Buddhists very much dedicate themselves to is dedicating themselves to the Buddha Sasana, reciting the Buddha's name, this Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. That comes from the time of the Buddha. That is something that Buddhists have been reciting for thousands of years already. And it's that sort of thing, or reciting the qualities of the Buddha, the qualities of the Dhamma, the qualities of Sangha. Why people give offerings to monks, why people build monasteries, why people engage in meditation practices, Buddhist meditation practices of all kinds. It's at least partially to connect themselves with Buddhism, to appreciate that I most likely will not become an arahant in this life, I may not even become a sotapanna. So I'm still susceptible to being reborn as a cow and a dog and all these horrible things. But the connection I have made with the Buddha Sasana is sure to aid me in finding Buddhism again, and it certainly does. If you're a Buddhist in this life, you have a higher chance of being a Buddhist in the next life, that sort of thing. And certainly the seeds that you plant of goodness are going to resonate and bring you back to situations of goodness. They can't help but do that. Why we talk about generosity. It's not like the monks talk about generosity because they're greedy. What are you going to give to the monks? We only need a little bit of food every day. We're not buying Porsches and airplanes. We shouldn't be anyway. But we talk about generosity, why we emphasize ethics, why you can't do the at-home course without keeping the 5 precepts, at least why you can't do a meditation course without keeping the 8 precepts. A meditation course at our center, an intensive course. And why we encourage meditation, even just metta meditation is valuable. Even just reciting the Buddha's words, Buddha Nusati, the Buddha talked about it. Recollection of the Buddha, a valid practice. Something that we should all engage in from time to time. Why every day there's chanting, reciting the Buddha's name and the Buddha's qualities. Anything to keep us in a position to be able to benefit and to learn from and practice the Buddha's teaching.
Bhante, here's the first question that we have. The question is, I pick and choose what I believe and follow as it suits me. What do these teachings say of the downfall of this attitude?
Well, the downfall, the word you used, yes, the downfall is that you don't know the truth. You don't know, you aren't inclined towards the truth, most likely. And that's maybe not fair. But you don't know the truth, that's fair. A person who knows the truth is not reborn. You wouldn't be reborn as a human being if you knew the truth. So what that means is you have wrong views. You're susceptible to wrong views. How many people like that believe that killing is okay? They really believe it. They might believe killing is good. It suits them. You can apply that example. You can apply that logic to any number of examples. There's people who believe that terrible things are okay. Just war, drones bombing civilians, all sorts of things. Horrible things that people believe are it suits them to believe those things. So you might say, well, I'm not one of those people. I don't believe in those things. But those are the most gross examples. It's not categorically different from believing that some arisen phenomenon will satisfy you. Some arisen phenomenon will be stable, or there's some arisen phenomenon that is you or yours or under your control. Because that's ultimately what you have to learn, that there is no arisen phenomenon that is stable. There is no arisen phenomenon that is satisfying. There is no arisen phenomenon that is you or yours or under your control. And that may not even resonate with you. It may sound like something you already know, but if you knew those things as a meditator knows them, if you saw those things as a meditator sees them, you wouldn't be reborn again. Or as an arahant, let's say, not just a meditator, because meditators do start to get glimpses of this. So it's not meaningful for you to say, I pick and choose what I believe, because it's not meaningful for anyone to say, I believe X, I believe Y. It doesn't have any value. You saying that I pick and choose what I believe, I mean, at the very least, it doesn't tell me anything about you. Doesn't really tell me anything about you. Because if you're an arahant, that would be perfect. Yes. What suits an arahant is what everyone should believe. I guess what it does say is you're comfortable with belief as opposed to direct knowledge. And that's common because most people don't even realize that there's an alternative. Most people will have to hammer out their views, as the Buddha said. The texts talk about this as hammering out your views. You hammer them out through logic, through reason, through bias, cobbled together from what others have said. You just copy what someone said. Oh, the Buddha said this. Well, I'll sound smart if I say that as well. You can take it as though it were yours, like this is my belief, just like the Buddha. But what I'm getting at is the Buddha didn't believe any of the things that he taught. He knew them. Arahants don't believe. Sariputta said, I don't have any. He said, it's not out of faith in the Buddha that I did he say? It's not out of faith in the Buddha that I believe in the Dhamma. I can't remember exactly what he said. He said, it sounded like he didn't have faith in the Buddha, and so the monks complained about it. And the Buddha said, yes, Sariputta is faithless. Asaddho akatanyu ja santi te jedo jayo naro. Atavakaso vantaso sawe uttamapuriso. Someone who, I won't go into detail with that, but he basically says all these terrible things, but they have good meaning. Faithless means it's not out of faith. So what this statement that you say implies is that you're one of these people, like the majority of people, who is okay with belief. And what I would say to you is that you should never be okay with belief. Science will even say that to you, right? Science will say that belief is meaningless. It is meaningless. You saying you believe in God just tells me, well, I mean, it doesn't tell me anything about the existence of God, right? I believe in God. Doesn't say whether God exists. It doesn't have any bearing on reality. It's just a belief. Beliefs are meaningless. They're significant because once you start basing your actions on your belief, it's not people take it as kind of a security. I believe it's okay to kill, as though that makes killing good, right? As though that justifies killing, and it never could. You believe X, Y, or Z, says nothing about whether it's good to do X, Y, or Z, right? It says nothing about the truth of X, Y, or Z. And it's something people have to, something we have to emphasize about Buddhism, is that Buddhism teaches you a way to see for yourself, to gain knowledge, so you never have to believe anything again. You can. I mean, obviously you can believe when the Buddha says something that you can't investigate, or, you can, when your friend tells you, oh, I saw this or that just down the road, you can believe them. You can have beliefs, but you don't need belief. And your core approach to reality isn't based on belief, it's based on knowledge, on observation, because you've seen for yourself the nature of reality.
Here's the next question, Bante. When noting the abdomen or walking, one should try to note concurrently with the experience. However, this is difficult with mental states. Should one wait until seeing the hindrance, or just note?
So technically nothing is ever noted as it happens. With the thing about physical experience is that they persist longer than mental observation of them, right? So they can appear to be noted as they're happening, but technically it doesn't happen like that, even with physical experiences. It still is going to be the experience and then the acknowledgement. The acknowledgement will always happen after the experience, so that's no barrier for physical or mental. You should never note anticipating, obviously, oh, I think I'm going to get angry, so I should note anger. I think I'm going to like this, so I should note liking. It's always going to be after you experience. It has to be, because first you have to have the experience, and then you note it. So when we talk about the present moment, it sounds like, or the assumption is that it should be as it's happening, right? We want to be in the present. But technically, it's the present moment means it happens and you note it. as soon as it's just happened. What it means is not thinking about experiences that you're not having, right? When you think about the past, the problem is you're no longer connected with what's actually happening here and now. When you're thinking about the past, you're still thinking here and now. That's what it means to be in the present. Future, past, they're not real. They're still dependent on the experiences that are happening here and now. When we talk about the present, that's what that means. It doesn't mean noting exactly as the experience happens. It's always going to be the next moment. So there'll be thought, and then you note thinking, or there'll be anger or greed or liking, disliking, and then you note the experience.
Bhante, here is the next question. Is it futile to directly fight against long-standing behavior patterns? And is the better course to work on more positive replacement behaviors? It seems I always fall back into bad patterns eventually.
Well, neither of those is bad, resisting bad impulses, cultivating good habits to counteract those. These are superficial Buddhist practices that are valuable, but they're not sufficient, and they're superficial. They're not deep practices. The deeper teaching here is that you're not in control. You can't fix your problem. You can't fix your problems. Why? Because that's not how you should look at reality. As soon as you're looking at reality as problems that require solutions, you've lost the, what's that for that phrase? There's an idiom I'm missing. Anyway, you've lost the thread. The practice of the Buddha's teaching is to understand experiences. Look at the Four Noble Truths. What did the Buddha say about suffering? He didn't say fix it. He didn't say run away from it. He didn't say free yourself from it. I think I must have talked about this during this course, but I've asked this question of people before. What did the Buddha say about suffering? I often ask this of Buddhists, people who grew up Buddhist. So, what did the Buddha say about suffering? What are you supposed to do about suffering? People always say, free yourself from it. I mean, obviously. But no, the Buddha said, fully understand it. Parinyaya. So, suffering is a problem, right? Wrong. Suffering is reality. It's to be fixed, right? Wrong. It's to be fully understood. And this is how we should approach everything, because dukkha encompasses everything. Really, it does. Everything is dukkha. I mean, everything that arises is dukkha. It doesn't mean it's a problem. It means it's to be understood. It's to be seen clearly as worthless, as not worth clinging to. It's not that it's something to be fixed or changed. It's something to get tired of and to just say, oh, here it comes and there it goes. When you're tired, it's just another word for being equanimous. Or it's what leads to be equanimous. The sense of tiredness is very real. It's not just equanimity. You really do feel tired. So you can probably ask yourself, having experienced this too many times, where you just fall back, you start to feel tired. You start to get tired of it. Not to say that's enough. You're not there yet. But this is what you're getting at. You're starting to get tired. This is the sort of thing that the Buddha began to appreciate when he looked at beings arising and ceasing according to their karma, right? The first watch of the night of the Bodhisattva, the enlightenment, before the Bodhisattva became enlightened, he remembered past lives. Imagine remembering all your past lives. Sure, it might make you afraid, but ultimately it just serves to emphasize that the good ones, useless, meaningless, bad ones, also meaningless. There was no rhyme or reason to any of it. There's no lessons learned, no development gained. It's just pointless, again and again and again. The second watch of the night, he saw not just rebirth, but how beings are reborn according to their karma. And he appreciated that it's up and down. That good doesn't ultimately fix the problems. It just sends you onto a good place for a while until you lose sight of the goodness and you fall back down and end up in a bad place. He got tired of this cycle. He saw how pointless it was, that beings are just reborn and born and die based on things like the bad habits that you talk about. He saw the futility of it and got tired of it. But you want to emphasize that for yourself and pay close attention to the sense of the futility of it. That it's just meaningless. It's just like mental garbage that you engage in these bad habits, right? They are bad, but more importantly, they're just futile and meaningless. We're getting angry. We get angry because we think, oh, this will help me change this person who I'm angry at, or change this situation that I'm angry at. When you see more clearly, you just get tired of that. You say, really, that's not the way. That's not what's going to happen. Yeah, sure, maybe I'll fix my problem. Now I've got a new problem. I'm very angry. I'm very sensitive to problems. I get angry whenever there's a problem. You pay close attention, you start to get tired of anger, tired of greed, tired of delusion, tired of suffering. You just get tired of fighting it. And you become equanimous as a result. That's when you know you're really on the right path. When you start to become equanimous. All things.
Bhante, here is the next question. The pain doesn't feel like a solid block anymore, but like a changing flow of sensations. Is that realizing impermanence?
You don't have to ask about impermanence. If you're still asking about it, it means it's not. Impermanence is just something that you'll see so clearly. It's not some intellectual thing. Impermanence is not even that deep, Impermanence is just that everything arises and ceases. It's something you're already seeing. But impermanence is to see it so clearly that you start to get the appreciation that everything arises and ceases. What you're talking about, it's part of the practice. It's all going to be, of course, you're going to see impermanence, you're going to see suffering, you're going to see non-self, because that's the nature of things. They're not worth clinging to. See it enough and you'll just stop clinging to things. But what you're talking about, let's see What you're talking about is the difference between pain and sensations. Pain is not sensation. So people will often describe it like you are describing it, that the pain is no longer pain, it's sensations. Well, all that means is the pain disappeared. Pain is pain. If it's not painful, it's not pain. If it's just sensations, it's just sensations. And they're connected, of course. Sometimes the sensations give rise to pain. But pain is mental. Pain is not physical. Physical is the sensations of hardness and softness and heat and cold and so on. Pain is what comes from that. So what you should go a little bit deeper and appreciate that the pain has ceased. Pain was there and pain ceased. That was an experience. What is here now, if it doesn't feel painful, it's no longer pain. It's something different. It's just a feeling. But don't confuse the two. Don't think that, oh, the pain changed into something else. That just means the pain ceased. There's no longer what we would call pain. Which is valuable. But you see, if you see impermanence, you'll appreciate it that way. Because when you say it changed, right? Pain becomes sensations. I mean, you're implying anyway that it's become the sensations. Then you're not actually seeing impermanence, because impermanence would be to see the pain has ceased and to appreciate that that was a thing that arose, and so that was an experience that arose and ceased. It's gone now. It didn't become something else.
Here's the next question, Bhante. I bought a cabin in the woods and intend to quit my job and move there to just live quietly and meditate. I have done intensive practice in this tradition. Is this a good idea or a mistake?
Well, being alone can be problematic. Doesn't have to be. It can be very fruitful, but it depends on the individual. I can't offer you advice without knowing more about your experience. And really, I'm not really in the business of offering advice besides, you know the advice of being mindful and continuing to cultivate the practice. But we do advise people to undertake the practice with a teacher. It's something universally advised, and I don't think anyone would debate that. If you want good results, you're always better off to practice under a teacher. Furthermore, again, the problem with being alone is often that you develop bad habits. Being around others who are also practicing makes it more likely that you'll develop good habits, because it's easier to see each other's problems than to see your own. Most especially being with a teacher who can point out bad habits you're picking up. So it's not sure to be a bad thing by any means, but there are issues that can be ameliorated by being in a community of like-minded individuals and not just going off on your own. For some people, going off on your own is the best thing they can do, and it does work. There's no question that it might work, but there is certainly potential for it to be problematic. I don't know. I mean, if you really are who you say, like if you really have done intensive practice, I wouldn't say it's a bad idea. Just know that there are issues that you may face and that may make it less than ideal. Another thing, final thing that I'll say is that regardless of the benefit to you from being in a meditation center with a teacher, it benefits the meditation center. So you should find a place where you can help, where you can do good and support Buddhism. I don't know, maybe that's too strong. You don't have to do that, but you can consider. Depends on the type of person you are. Maybe you're the type of person who just wants to go off in the forest and leave everyone behind. But if you're the sort of person who thinks it might be valuable to help others and that helping others might help you as well, might make you a better person and make your practice more fruitful, and find a way to be involved with Buddhism and live in a place where you're not like engaging with people all the time, but you're able to help build and help bring Buddhism to others, help bring others to Buddhism, that sort of thing. So that's something to consider. It's not a reason why what you're doing is bad by any means. Again, the idea is sound, certainly is potentially good, but some food for thought, I guess. Once wanted to go off into the forest, and I said I was just going to go leave everything behind, and I said I'm going to go to this monastery to see this monk. And my teacher just shut me down. He said, when you go to that monastery, stay there and teach meditation. And that was that. I was just going to go to this monastery as a sort of a stepping off point to go into the forest, because it was on the way to the forest. I ended up staying there for a couple of years. No, not even a couple of years, a year maybe.
Bhante, here is the next question. Is it okay if there's quite a long stretch of time between the rising and falling, where only the sitting is noted? The mind seems to stick to the sensation of sitting on the floor.
Well, sticking is not valuable, but you can keep noting sitting. I mean, I don't want to overanalyze what you're saying, so it's fine. If you're saying sitting, say sitting, sit. If you know that you're sitting, say sitting. Until the stomach rises again, that's perfectly fine. That's correct practice. But I guess if you notice, like this sticking is something that kind of sticks out. Something is going on there that you might want to note as well. Whatever it is that makes you say that the mind is sticking, you should note whatever that is. Even if it's just to note feeling or knowing that something like that is happening, because you want to see everything arises and ceases, and that means everything. So this thing that you're talking about, the mind sticking to something, is also going to arise and cease, and you want to be there when it does. You want to notice, and you want to teach yourself that it's not me, it's not mind. It's not stable, it's not permanent. It also arises and ceases. That's what's most important to see.
Here's the next question, Bhante. I have started noticing that I often use noting practice to quickly clear unpleasant states and feel okay again. Earlier, I saw this as skillful, but now I wonder if I'm using this technique as a subtle form of aversion or spiritual bypassing. How do I stay aligned with practice while making sure noting supports clarity rather than becoming another escape?
Well, noting does support clarity. That's why you're seeing the good results. It can be that before you note, you might have the desire to note for bad reasons or superficial reasons or whatever, but that you can just note as well. It's not, don't overcomplicate it. It's not wrong to practice just because there also arise bad intentions. I mean, that's natural. You're not going to be good all the time. Just learn to catch the bad. So if you say, suppose you say, I'm going to be mindful so I can be very clear when I want to hurt someone or something like that, the very worst. Or maybe I'm going on a date with someone and I want to be able to impress them, so I'll be mindful. Doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with being mindful. This means you should also be noting the desire for romance and that sort of thing. You should also start noting that as well. Imagine, I wonder all the superficial ways people use mindfulness. It's a good example because it's horrific to think that people are using mindfulness to help them pick up a romantic partner, but it doesn't say anything bad about. I mean, the mindfulness part is great, and it sure should impress people. Someone who is mindful should impress bosses and romantic partners and children and parents and teachers. Should impress everybody when you're mindful. And make people, good people anyway, want to associate with you. So it's not that, oh, I should stop being mindful in this situation. Absolutely, if you're going on a date with someone, you absolutely should be mindful. It's much better than the alternative. It's just that you should also be noting sensual desire and romantic desire and all that as well. For example, what you're talking about is not that, but the same idea. Clear unpleasant states, yes. So aversion towards the unpleasant states, you should just be noting that as well.
Bhante, here is the next question. When noting something that distracts, such as thinking, there is a gap before returning to the abdomen where the thought is gone, but the thinking hasn't finished. Is this fine?
I wouldn't overanalyze it. I mean, you could note knowing if you notice that that's happening, but just keep it simple. Just go back to the stomach. People really pick apart this technique, and it's not a bad question per se, but you really shouldn't have to ask these sorts of questions. I'm not reprimanding. I'm just trying to help you along by pointing out that don't overanalyze it. Don't pick it apart like trying to find exactly what to do in every circumstance. Keep it simple. You note thinking. If you notice something about that experience, you can also note knowing. That's fine, but it's not magic. It's not like if you catch every little thing, something good happens. Noting, you have to understand what is the purpose of the noting. The purpose is because if we don't note, we judge. And when you note, you stop judging, you're more equanimous, and therefore you have a clearer state of mind that can see the experience more as it is, with better clarity. So use it as a tool. Don't let it control you and say, like, be a slave driver where you have to note every little thing or something bad happens, or if you manage to note every little thing, something good happens. So just keep it simple. Try to follow instructions as best you can, but don't let the instructions be some kind of Bible or something. It's a war. It's like we give you training in weapons, and the training is all very cut and dried, but when you get on the battlefield, it's completely different. It's a whole different story, and you have to learn as you go. You're on the battlefield, you have to improvise. And so just improvise, do the best you can, and slowly but surely you'll dig your trenches and your fortifications, and eventually you'll have a good position to fight from.
Here's the next question that we have, Bhante. In periods when I do serious, formal meditation, I become heavy and kind of grumpy. When I stop, I become light and open with people. What is triggering these dynamics? What to not miss noting?
Well, mindfulness is difficult, no? It's about facing things that you'd normally not want to face, and staying patient with things that you want to chase after. And that's unpleasant and uncomfortable. Imagine someone who goes on withdrawal from drugs. They're certainly not very pleasant to be around. That's about all it is. You're just going through withdrawal. I mean, it's a little more complicated because it depends who you're around. If the people you're around are the sorts of people who are also drug addicts, then they're certainly not going to be happy when you start giving up drugs, refusing drugs, turning your nose up at drugs. So when you're not engaging in the sorts of things that you engage in, even idle chatter, it's difficult. But in the long term, your friends change, the people you associate with change, but also, of course, most importantly, you change. And you should really become more tolerant. If you're grumpy, it's just a sign that you're still very much an addict. And you're still very much reactionary to things, and that's fine. The thing to understand is that we're trying to see these things about ourselves. So meditation is not just difficult, it's purposefully difficult, purposefully challenging. And it's expected that you're going to get grumpy. The commentaries liken it to training an ox. When you want to train an ox, baby ox is only interested in its mother's milk. You have to take it away from the mother's milk. If you don't take the baby ox away from the mother, it'll never grow up to be a working ox. It'll never be able to work. It'll be spoiled. So you take it away from the mother, and it cries and it screams, but you tie a rope around its neck or to its nose or whatever, and then you drive a stake into the ground and you tie the rope to the stake. Then you leave it. You don't have to tie the rope around the body of the ox, or you let it run free with the rope. And it can't go back to the mother, but it runs and it runs around and in circles, around this stake. And it does that until it gets tired. And when it gets tired, it will lie down right next to the stake. Then you can start to train it. So mindfulness is the rope. Mindfulness is the rope. The stake you could call, I guess, the present moment. Mindfulness is what keeps you tied to the present moment. No matter your mind wants to run to the past and the future, run to imagination, your mind keeps it tied. Mindfulness keeps you tied to the present. which means you can let the mind go free as long as you have mindfulness, as long as you're engaged in mindfulness. You don't have to not think this or not think that or not feel this or not feel that. When you're grumpy, you just have to be mindful of being grumpy. Let your mind cry out for the mother's milk. And just be mindful of it. Mindfulness keeps you tied and will eventually teach you to get tired of it. To see the stress that comes from needing things, craving for things and needing things to be a certain way. Eventually, when you get tired of it, you'll stop being grumpy. You'll be a big cow.
Bhante, here is the next question. I'm no longer attracted to my wife because she's aging. She's a good person and I feel horrible. We're separating because it has created a divide in our relationship. Do you have any advice?
I'll just go with it. If she wants you to be attracted to her and you're not attracted to her, then, well, you got to separate. It's just how it goes. If, on the other hand, it's not something that from her side is a deal breaker, then certainly no reason to separate just because you're not attracted to each other. It's just a mistake that we think that we should have to be attracted to each other and that there's some value in being attracted to each other physically, you know? If that's all it is, it's a fairly superficial relationship and it's not of any value. If that's the deal breaker, then good riddance, really. For either of you, you know, if for you it was just, oh, I'm attracted to her and now I'm not, I was attracted to her, now I'm not, what's the point? There is no point. It was a useless relationship in the first place if that was all there was. But usually that's not all there is, right? You're attracted to the qualities of the other person and that can have value. That's what's much more important, much more valuable. Really, physical attraction is, well, it's beyond useless. It's harmful, right? It's just an addiction. So it's a problem because if you're ever to tell your partner, "I'm no longer attracted to you," of course they're going to be horrified. It's unfortunate that we have this misconception that somehow we should have to be attractive to each other physically. That somehow physical attraction has some value or meaning, and it doesn't. So I can't say about your relationship, but try and see it in that light, that it's no loss. There's no loss of if that's all that's important. It is a loss that people think that that's all that's important. So it's a shame to that extent. But, you know, you can only do so much. And ultimately, you're only responsible for your own perceptions. So the most important is that you don't see that is of any consequence. It shouldn't. Whether you're attracted to someone or not shouldn't determine your actions or lack of action. But, you know, if you're really no longer attracted to her, if you're no longer attracted to no longer have the object of your attraction. You can come and live with us, become a monk. Who needs romance?
Here's the next question, Bhante. How do I deal with the fear of missing out on things in worldly life, while also having good intentions towards the Dhamma life?
Is the fear valuable? Fear of missing out. Right. So if you do want to be free from fear, the idea is don't miss out on things in worldly life. But that's not true, you know. You think, well, if I do this, I'm afraid that I'll miss out on this or that or the other thing. So to fix that fear, I've got to have this, that, and the other thing. The things in worldly life, if I don't get them, that's bad, and I'm afraid I might not get them. The problem is the more you get them, the more susceptible you are, or vulnerable you are to fear. Fear of loss, fear of not getting them. It's not actually the solution. It's not actually the solution to fear. And fix your fear by getting the things that you're afraid of not getting. The simple practical solution is just be mindful of when you're involved with worldly things as well. Practice the Dhamma in daily life. When you want something, try and be mindful of that. When you get something, be mindful of that as well. Or just be mindful when you can, you know. When you have an opportunity, be mindful. You don't have to deprive yourself of anything in the world. You just have to learn to see it more clearly. So see when it's causing you stress and suffering. Because that's the misunderstanding, is that somehow you're getting benefit from worldly things. So pay attention to them and see that you're actually not. Once you learn that, you'll just get tired of them and just lose your interest in them. Naturally. You don't have to avoid them. But do try to note that fear whenever it arises, because the fear is always a bad thing.
Bhante, here's the next question. Is mowing the lawn breaking the first precept or otherwise unskillful for possible insect deaths?
It's certainly problematic. It doesn't break the first precept, but you got issues there, right? I think most people would just say it's not a problem, go ahead and do it, but technically that's not accurate. Mowing the lawn is dangerous to other living beings. And when you're in a quandary where you're living in the world, you really have not much choice, and you're certainly not breaking the first precept. right? Because you're not intentionally killing anyone. You can make a wish, make a determination. Through the power, through this act, may no beings be killed. Determine that in your mind, and see how it goes. It will certainly give you more confidence. It doesn't mean that it won't happen. It doesn't mean that beings won't die, but you're determined in your mind that you will, to the best of your ability, not intentionally deprive another being of life. It's not. It's not the best way. The best way is stop cutting the lawn, right? You just really should avoid, to the best of your ability, those things that have the potential to harm other living beings. But practically speaking, you can't do that. For someone living in the world, you have to cut your lawn or you get in trouble, right? You have to drive your car, but driving your car, you might hit insects as well, right? But no, it's not something to feel guilty about. But it does point to a very small problem with things like cutting the lawn, driving cars, and so on, among many problems. So, again, don't worry about cutting the lawn. Again, try to make this determination before you cut the lawn. May no beings die, meaning my intention is absolutely for no being to die when I'm cutting this. You could add, if beings do die by my act of this, may they forgive me. May they not carry a grudge against me in their next life. That sort of thing. And if they do, I forgive them. But to have no grudge or no appreciate the weight of it. But it's an example of, for example, why we should become vegetarian, why vegetarianism is good. It's not a Buddhist requirement. The Mahasi Sayadaw was vegetarian. It's not a bad thing to think about becoming vegetarian. Why we should stop having lawns, as example. As Buddhists, you don't need a lawn. There are ways around it. There are, in many places, there are alternatives that are much better than having a lawn. For example, just as an example. So it does point to a broader, let's say, Buddhist policy, the way we should build a Buddhist community. Not that it will ever happen in most places, but it's the kind of thing to think about. Yes, if I can, I'll just get rid of my lawn, because mowing it, I might kill. A being might die as a result of that. That's not a good thing. Not that you can stop beings from dying, but you can protect them to some extent by not cutting your lawn, by not having a lawn, for example. But you can't. You can't avoid. You can't say, well, if I do this, a being might die. It's not that you're held ethically liable. It's that, you do your best you make policies to provide beings with as much security as you're able, much safety from you as you're able. It's just good policy.
Okay, Bhante, we've hit the second hour, so that will conclude our session for today. Thank you so much for everything.
Well, thank you. Thank you for organizing the session. Thank you for all the volunteers and people who are working on this. It's imperfect, we got to remember that it's always going to be imperfect. There's so many variables. We're dealing with something incredibly complicated that's going to be imperfect in ways that Buddhists don't have to deal with or haven't had to deal with before the internet. So we have many points of failure. Thank you everyone for putting up with them and for being patient with technical difficulties, because that's just the nature of the situation. And you can say that it's a useful practice of seeing impermanence and so on. And certainly that's true to some extent. I mean, what's true is that we should be vigilant about our emotions, worry, fear, disliking, annoyance when things don't go our way, as they inevitably will. But I appreciate the challenge that you have all taken up as volunteers to make this work. And we have to acknowledge that it's challenging and problematic and has many points of potential failure. So that we can do it at all is a miracle. And that we're able to have 2 hours together from all around the world is quite remarkable. So it is a good thing. Thank you all for joining, those people who joined on YouTube. I appreciate you, and people who joined the Dhamma group, who are on stage, front and center, doing the reading. And do a lot of reading because I had a lot of things to say. I hope that wasn't too much and that there was some value in the things that I said. But I appreciate the time people took to carefully read these words of the Most Venerable Mahasi Sayadaw. Much appreciation to everyone for the goodness that you've gained on this occasion, the goodness that we've performed, the sincerity and purity of mind that comes from any engagement with the Buddha Dhamma. So by the power of all this goodness, all the goodness that you've done in this life and all the goodness you've done in past lives, combined with the power of the Buddha, the power of the Dhamma, the power of the Sangha, may all these things protect you from suffering, protect you from sickness, protect you from danger, protect you from enmity and calamity of all sorts. May you all live happy, healthy, long lives with the strength to face whatever comes your way. You will cultivate the good qualities of the Buddha, that the Buddha taught us to cultivate, proper qualities of confidence, effort, mindfulness, concentration, and wisdom. You will follow the Vanga Magga, the Eightfold Noble Path, for the cultivation of mindfulness and all the other factors. Reach ultimately the Noble Path, Arya Magga, which cuts off defilements and makes one a stream enterer. You all attain this noble goal, become a noble being through the path, fruition, and nibbana. Sadhu.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.